The absurdity of what's happening around the Voting Rights Act, our voting rights in this country, the gutting of the Voting Rights Act and all the subsequent actions of secretaries of states around the country. We have a couple of clips from the senators from my state of Georgia, from Senator Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, as they discuss what's happening and how the filibuster and how the games are being played to keep us from our most fundamental democratic right, and that is the right to vote. Let's take a listen into the first clip.
But I speak for the state of Georgia when I say do not invoke Congressman Lewis' name to signal your virtue while you work to erode his legacy and defy his will. I've heard a lot from our Republican colleagues about the recently passed election law in the state of Georgia. Let's be very clear. There is no one in Georgia on either side of the aisle who doubts or does not understand precisely what its purpose is. Forbidding voter registration for runoff elections. Driving down the early vote period during decisive runoffs to drive up lines at majority black precincts. As he used to say, John Lewis didn't give a little blood on that bridge that day so that black Georgians would have to wait 8 times longer to vote than white Georgians.
And that's the game that's afoot. It is not the same exact precise game. It is, they're going to make it extremely difficult, or they're going to purge you, or they're going to whatever machinations they have set into play across this country, particularly in Georgia, they are headlong into it. And the problem is, as we saw last night, the Senate is incapable of protecting these rights because they refuse to do anything with the filibuster, and because the Republican Party is voting as a bloc completely against the John Lewis Voting Act. Our ability, I don't even want to put a name on it. They are voting against our fundamental right to vote. That is what the Republicans are doing. And then, of course, we have the 2 Democrats that are culpable joining with those Republicans. It is the same game, but it is an absurd one because it is striking at the core of our democracy, Sister Ford.
Yeah, well, and if they don't do that and they can't convince you to vote for them, then they lose. And so if they know that they can't influence voters to vote in their favor, then they're going to use the tactics and tools historically that have been used even to manipulate outcomes. And so we shouldn't be surprised. And matter of fact, if these same people who blocked, our right to vote, if they would implement CRT, maybe we could learn more about the filibuster and how historically it's been used in similar ways.
That's right.
You know, these occurrences are not new. Maybe people who don't follow politics, who are unaware, might not see the reoccurring theme here. But even in the civil rights movement, if you go and you dig into Martin Luther King's archive, he actively was speaking out against the filibuster back then. And it was being used back then to produce similar outcomes. So every time that this country has seen an advancement for Black people, that advancement has been followed by some kind of implementation of systematic oppression. Something in the system, a loophole, a written clause somewhere in a contract. When you look at the deeds for homes, redlining.
That's right.
Every time there's been, we'll give you equal housing, but when you look at the deeds, was it really equal housing? You know, and it's the same thing. We'll give you the right to vote, but we're going to suppress your vote. So at every turn in this country, at every time that we've had the advancement of Black people, it's been followed by things like this. So we shouldn't be surprised, but it saddens me that we have a body of people in this nation who are actively working to ensure that we do not have equal access to votes or many other basic amenities or basic privileges that are supposed to come with our citizenship.
Brother Mac, I want to toss it to you, but Sister Ford, that's it. Like the Venn diagram of the people who are trying to keep us from voting probably has about a 99% overlap with the same people who are ignoring or exacerbating the situation around COVID-19. It has probably 100% overlap with the people who are ignoring the climate data. It is the same pattern over and over. It's the same people who will look at George Floyd being murdered by Derek Chauvin and find a way to justify it. It is a level of absurdity that goes through and through our politics, but the culprits are all the same.
That's right.
Brother Ben and Sister Georgia, when we talk about voter suppression, I just want to simplify it, if you will. Why would one need to change voting procedures? Well, let's assume that the legislative body was all white and the country isn't all white. There'd be a need to make a change. Let's say the legislative body was all black, all male, all women, all anything. See, that would create a need to want to change things. Let's assume that the election process is very flawed, where ballots are not being counted, dead folks are voting. If you have incredible data that shows these types of flaws in your process, it should be changed. In this case, 50, or let's say that you showing, in this case in 2018, I want to say that the percentage of Americans that voted was 50%. So being to your point that this is our most fundamental American right, is that of voting, you would think that the legislative process would want to try to encourage as many people to vote as possible and to have the most diverse representation in the halls of the policy-making positions in this country that represents your community. Of course, if you are in an all-black community, it doesn't make sense that all of a sudden this white man has got to be the one that's making policy for us. He doesn't live in our community. He ain't one of us. He don't understand us. Now, if we as black folks took this one white man who lived in our community and decided, yes, we like this brother, we're going to put him in office, that's one thing. But in a case where he does not or she does not live in our community, and now you're able to redistrict. So when we talk about the methodologies and the things that they use, redistricting is one. So you just imagine that this is the all-black community, and now they come in and draw a line that begins to fracture it and segment it such that now all of our people in our community, when we vote, our votes are fractured and splintered. So it allows somebody else to come in. So these are the types of policy. In my mother's day and time, I ran away because I wanted to go get a poll tax card. I wanted to go get my mother's poll tax card. And in 1965, my mother paid $2 to vote. I have her poll tax card. Trust and believe. If only 50% of Americans are voting today, and if you charge a quarter, that number is going to drop dramatically. So these are the type of tactics that they're using. And I love what the representative said. He said, look, first of all, let's not kid anybody. Everybody on both sides of the aisle know exactly why we're doing this. Because when that state of Georgia flipped from red to blue, they began to understand exactly, Sister Ford, as you stated, what Dr. King talked about in regards to the power of this vote.